To put it simply, this docuseries can be summed up in 3 words: Blackness, belonging, and connection. In the summer of 2022, when the world was still recovering from COVID-19, we gathered at the historic Dunbar Pavilion in Tucson, Arizona, and created a space with the intention of bringing Black strangers together to recover and restore and to reflect through intergenerational conversations. Here are their stories.
Hello, Mr. Michael. I'm Jason.
I'm Michael Engs.
Nice to meet you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, yeah, I came to Tucson about 49 years ago, and I'm a local historian and reenactor. I've stayed here because I love the culture. What about you?
So I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. I was born and raised there. And then I moved to Tucson about 5 years ago. When we moved here, I was a police officer at the University of Arizona for 10 months.
Oh, I see.
So what is life about for you? What do you find most gratifying in your life right now?
Well, having a successful career has made me financially independent, so I can pretty much do what I want. And I tried to do consulting for Pima College for a while, and I thought, this is too close to work, what I've been doing for 30 years. So now I just do what I like to do every day. And it's very gratifying to have a career that helps you be financially independent into your old age.
I think that is awesome. I think, life for me right now is really about my son. Mm-hmm. And at the university, they were talking about changing schedules every 6 months. And I just wanted consistency for my son.
Exactly.
So,
Good choice. So what advice would you give to someone who is thinking of moving here?
I would say it's something you would have to get used to, especially like if you're coming from out east. When you move here, they say you guys are going to have a yard. When we got here, I'm like, it's rocks, rocks, cactus, brown. But I think it is what you make it.
Yeah, I think if I had to talk to you before you moved here, the thing I would have told you is try to see the culture of African Americans. Because with only 4% of us, it's really hard to understand how deep we go in this area.
And that's something like I was saying when we moved here.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I saw Black people, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Some would speak, some wouldn't speak. I was just amazed. And it seemed like everybody is scattered. All the Black folks are scattered, but it's just culture shock.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
What values, ideals, and traditions would you like to see preserved, and which ones are you happy to see us shifting out of?
Well, I think there's 4 different areas that I focus on when I talk about the Black community here in Tucson. Their adjustment to the environment, foodways, culture, art and history, and technology. And I think one of the values that is changing over from a low on the hog diet, as they call it in the South, to a high earth diet, which is almost vegetable based. Because as you get older, you really have to eat healthier.
Right.
How does your creativity express itself?
So I have a passion for mentoring youth. I try to pour a lot of my experiences that I had growing up doing different things that we did, not just basketball, football, but just different things that are trying to get kids into music, trying to get kids to draw, trying to get kids to, go out and see nature, but just expanding those horizons for youth in their minds. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, I find out reenacting and history and getting kids into research, especially about the people who came before them and some of the adventure stories. The thing I find very creative here in Tucson, especially working with youth, is that this was not a slave culture. And what kids are experiencing in school is that they're given the story of Black people from an Eastern perspective of slavery. And if you go into a classroom to do presentations, which I often do, what you see is their heads go down, their shoulders slump. Anytime you start to talk about Black history, they feel you're going to shame them.
Right.
But if you use the stories that are original stories here from Tucson, you're not talking about slaves. You're talking about soldiers, you're talking about adventurers, you're talking about women. So you can give them the stories and you immediately see a change in their demeanor because they are starting to realize that not every story about them is going to be a slave narrative.
What does Blackness mean to you? What has shaped your Blackness?
Well, I think it's shaped by my upbringing.
I grew up in the military, so I spent half my life in Germany by the time I was 14. Then I came back here at 14. and went to an all-black high school. And then at that point, my parents' decision was to encourage me to integrate every school I went to from then on, which I did. And so I've always had to honor my culture and maintain my culture in very difficult circumstances. And to me, Blackness is a way of being yourself and a way of being proud of who you came from, even in the most difficult circumstances.
I remember when I was in school, Mr. Harris, he once told me, he said, young Palmer, blacks were given the very worst conditions, but had to perform the very best. That's something that always stuck with me. And we talk about, things have come so far, but I think about, when I listen to the radio, I think about, we're still dealing with issues of redlining. We're still dealing with police brutality. And I love being black. I wouldn't change it for the world. I just would not change it. But there's some things that we still have to work on.
So what's been bringing you joy lately?
My son, I'm not going to apologize about that, but just watching him grow.
Exactly.
One of my friends said to me when I was like, man, my wife is pregnant. He said, the best advice I can give you is to grow with your son. He said, and that's what's going to happen. And through each stage, you grow with them. And I just love seeing how he's developing. Joy.
I totally agree. Children are the joy of your life.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what groups, spaces, and activities do you feel a sense of belonging? What drew you to those groups, spaces, and activities?
What I'm finding is there's at least 5 different places here in Tucson that are really enriching their culture by emphasizing diversity and especially African Americans. So to me, there's a renaissance starting to bubble up in Tucson that is just amazing to watch.
I'm going to have to be more intentional about getting more involved in things and what things would draw me here in Tucson that I like. There's this group called Need. I took a break from it when I got my promotion at the job, but I really need to get back in there because Need was focusing on African-American youth, talking about the disparities like in the school system. They're the minority in the schools, but getting more referrals to juvenile court,
exactly.
Being suspended more. So things like that, which I really need to get back involved in. So,
well, you let me know if I can be of help.
Tell us about a particular challenging experience you have had as a Black Tucsonan. How did you navigate that challenge?
I was just challenged about 2 weeks ago now. I was doing a introduction to Mission Garden for a group of Buffalo soldiers here in Tucson. And these people started walking up because they were listening to me talk and tell stories. And this one lady walked up, sat right beside me, and started to make comments about people from her past in Minnesota who happened to be Black. And she kept using the term pimp and prostitute. And I kept saying, this is an organized meeting. We have an agenda. And she wouldn't stop. But I never lost my cool because I had a job to do. I had some work to do. And you can't let people interrupt your work or else they win.
Right. I think one of that sticks out with me, like I said, I was a police officer at the University of Arizona. And then I heard about on campus, MLK Center. And I go in there, I'm happy. It's only 2 Black police officers on the force on campus. So I walk in there and I'm like, hey, I'm Officer Palmer. And it was contentious. When I left, I was upset. And maybe later on, I talked to one of the students that was there and she said, hey, maybe you prejudged them. But, I go in there to try to build relationship. Hey, I'm going to be on campus. I would even like to stop by now and again and talk to you because that's what I was doing in Indianapolis, just building that rapport. But I wasn't received as a police officer, and let alone as a Black man. So I'm going in here and I'm talking, and I understand the relationship between police, Black folks, and all those things. But I'm being intentional, going in and talk like, hey, you have a Black officer here. So I left that and I was disappointed. Tell us about the Black Tucson community. What are the strengths and what are its opportunities?
As I said before, I think the Black community in Tucson is actually going through a renaissance.
And a lot of people don't realize that because they are not connected. There's a lot about how we are disconnected from each other based on how the city grew and got built. Because once housing became more accessible, people could live anywhere. There wasn't a Black community.
And that goes back to with the redlining thing.
Exactly.
You know, so it's still going on here.
Exactly.
I think one of the opportunities here for the Black community is I really do think we need to stop doing this. I've been here, this old Tucson versus new Tucson, and just do whatever, you know, and just be cordial that way. I know that goes on everywhere, but it's like, you know, I'm on the group Being Black in Tucson, and I saw some heated arguments on there, and I just get my Slurpee and popcorn, don't chime in, just listen to it. But it's like really, it's kind of funny to see. We can make light of it, but it's like, man, stop all this. To me, I just think it's foolishness.
So what do you think are the biggest differences between you and me?
Right now, I would say experiences. Some of the experiences from what I hear. Now, I wasn't in the military.
You're paramilitary.
Yeah. We probably have, even though we're Black, I know we have different views on things.
Well, I think some of the similarities, the fact that you, like very few people that I grew up with in Virginia,
that I went to high school with, are still there.
in the same hometown, within a block of where they grew up.
Right.
You know, whereas I decided in life, I'm going to go experiment other places. And that's been the key to my success, is looking for opportunities in other places rather than staying in one place where the opportunities weren't there for me. I think you're doing the same thing.
What do you appreciate about the person across from you?
Well, I think I appreciate the fact that you were willing to move from Indianapolis, come to Tucson, because that is something that is not just about Tucson. It's really about you as a person. And as I said, from my experience, the more willing you are to go into new experiences, the more you grow throughout life.
What I appreciate about you is experience. And from the limited conversation that we've already had, my mom used to say, bought knowledge is taught knowledge, or an experience is the best teacher. And it would be foolish of anybody not to listen to those experiences. About myself, I think I appreciate open-mindedness for me. And most of all, appreciating being a father and a husband.
Well, I have to agree with the latter. Being a father and husband is the most gratifying part of my life, even to this day. But I also appreciate that I do well at things I don't like. That's part of the key to my success. Like, I've never liked school, but I've had 12 years of higher education. You see what I'm saying? Because I knew that in the end it would pay off, which it has beyond my wildest dreams. So I really appreciate that about myself, that I can do the tough stuff.
That was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.